Are you a high-performing real estate investor who's looking to further elevate your performance? If so, download our free guide, Raising the Bar, 5 Steps to Elevate Your Habits by joining our insider network at elevatepod.com. This guide, created by yours truly, has the power to put your transformation on autopilot and exponentially change your trajectory. Go get your free copy now at elevatepod.com.
Welcome to Elevate, the masterclass where we dissect the elements of exceptional achievement and lifestyle design with a focus on personal growth and real estate investing. Now, here's your host, Tyler Chesser.
Elevate Nation, welcome back. This is Tyler Chesser. I'm so thankful to have you here. And I am blessed and grateful to be sitting with Brent Bowers today. And we are going to be talking about land investing. We're going to be talking about the power of the rhinoceros success mindset and how you can integrate and apply that to your own life immediately, and how you can learn some really timeless and practical tips and strategies towards not only creating more opportunities, but really amplifying your cash position, amplifying your own cash flow, your passive cash flow, or learning about how his challenges can really apply, towards your own learning and towards your own growth and your own success in real estate. So I'm excited to share this episode with you. Elevate Podcast is all about mindset, mind expansion, and personal growth for high-performing real estate investors. I'm your host, Tyler Chesser, and I'm a professional real estate investor and high-performance coach. It is my job to decode the stories, habits, and multifaceted expertise of world-class investors and other experts to help you elevate your performance and lifestyle. Are you ready to take it to another level? It is time. Let's raise the bar today, because it is time to really raise that bar. I'm really excited about this conversation. I'm really excited to share this with you. Before we dive in, I want to encourage you to give us a rating, review, and share this with a friend, because at the end of the day, that's the fee that we ask, is really for you to just pay it forward. Share this with one person that you care about, or share it to your network, share it on social media, and really pay this message forward, because the abundance mindset is what we're all about here. And I want to dive in. I want to introduce you to Brent Bowers, who is an investor and coach with a focus on buying and selling vacant land. As an Army officer with over 8 years of service, Brent was spending a great deal of time away from his family, and he knew he needed to make some changes in order to be more present with his wife and children. In a short period of time, Brent was able to expand his business, hire a team, and most importantly, spend quality time with his family while still working hard and helping others. While Brent invests in many different types of real estate, his favorite investment strategy deals with buying and selling vacant land, and he enjoys sharing his experience in this area with his coaching clients. Brent chooses to live his life based on Bob Burg's quote, "Your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first." He is passionate about helping other people find success in real estate investing, particularly in land investment. So without further ado, please enjoy this great conversation with Brent Bowers. Brent Bowers, how are you, my friend?
I'm really good, Tyler. Thanks so much for having me today.
Man, it's a pleasure to be with you. And it was really cool connecting beforehand, because we have a lot in common in terms of some of our philosophies, in terms of our mindset, in terms of our outlook on the world. So I'm really excited to dive into this conversation, introduce you to Elevate Nation, get to know you further, get to know not only your story, your background, but also how you're applying that today and sort of what's inspiring you and so forth. So I'm excited about this. So before we dive in truthfully in this conversation, I'd love to play a little game with you. If you were to describe yourself in the way that your closest family members, whether it's your kids, your wife, people that know you best, whether maybe they're family members, otherwise extended family, best friends, if they were to describe Brent Bowers, what would they say about you?
They would say I have a big set of I would say the first thing is, like, I've always been told, well, nothing scares you. Like, you'll try anything. You don't even know what you're doing. You'll just take off and start running with it. And I now see that as a compliment. Before, it's like, maybe because I'm dumb, but now I see that as, yeah, let's do it. Show me a way, and I'll figure it out type thing. I'm not afraid to try anything, except for I haven't skydived out of an actual airplane yet. My wife has. I was in the Army and I did not jump out of airplanes. So I would say that's one thing I haven't been willing to try. That's about it, though. Everything else nothing else is off limits.
So was that at some point not a good thing in your life, or was that seen or perceived as not a good thing, that you were in that boat of nothing scares you and that you'll try anything?
I think it's at one point, maybe, like when I cared what people thought when I was in like high school and middle school. And now it's like, I feel like, what's so cool about graduating high school and college? Like, you no longer care what people think about you. So yeah, at one point I actually used to care what people thought. And now I'm like thinking to myself, well, that's a pretty good trait, I think, because most people are like afraid to try anything new. I see it every day. People are afraid to fail, afraid to send the letters out, afraid to do the marketing because they might lose a couple $1,000s. Well, here's the thing. You can always get more money. You can never get more time. You may be able to reclaim your health, but you're never going to get more time back. So the way I look at it, I'll invest $1 to get more time, and I'm willing to lose the dollar too. So I think if most people, this is Elevate Nation. So I'm talking to the, guys that are like-minded, girls that are like-minded, what I'm talking about right here. So I'm probably in great company, but that's probably very similar to most of your listeners.
Yeah. And I think it's actually really cool, but it's also a really important reminder that I think our natural tendency is to really care what others think about us. And I believe it comes from evolution, because if we're accepted and protected in a tribe, we're more likely to survive. But I think it's interesting not only to have that awareness, but then as we evolve past that, we can be aware of sort of that protection mechanism that's built into our biology, but then we can elevate beyond that, right? Instead of being afraid of embarrassment or failure, we can then use that as a discomfort tool to expand through that. Does that resonate with you?
100%. I was just out in Arizona the other day. I was talking to you about that I was talking to someone else before that we got on here. I got the opportunity to get on Steve Train's podcast with the Real Estate Disruptors. Well, I tried this little hole in the wall Mexican restaurant, and it was a little bit like, in the shady area, but I knew it was a good place. I was told it was a great place. And I walked in, it was at nighttime, kind of late, a little uncomfortable. I was the only person that looked like this walking into there. And I was like, okay, I'm not with my tribe anymore. And then someone walked in that kind of dressed a little bit like me, looked a little bit like me. I immediately felt better. So that resonated 100% what you just said.
Yeah.
The tribe thing, we feel comfortable.
It's so interesting. I mean, I go back to the conversation I had with Michael Easter, who's the author of The Comfort Crisis. And he talks about how, our baseline mechanism, our baseline decision underlying in terms of all of our other decisions is the desire to be comfortable. And that's what's holding us back in many ways. And so I think having that awareness of that type of experience and saying, look, I felt then comfortable when I could relate to someone else. It almost sheds a light on, all right, well, what else am I holding myself back on by just remaining in that comfort zone? So I think it's really cool. And you talked about the way that we aligned in this part of the conversation was that originally you cared what people thought about you. And now you've really shed that belief and you've expanded through that. So I'm sure we'll come back to that in this conversation, but tell me a little bit about your upbringing, where you came from, what was life like growing up and so forth.
Well, there's two things I got to say before I get into that. I still struggle with caring what people think about me. I mean, my wife, all the time, I care is she mad? Is she not mad? Right. And then the second thing is, yes, we're always comfortable. Like I like to go on long distance runs. And you bet your butt I'll slow down or stop if the hill's too high because I think I'm about to throw up or I don't want to push myself too hard because I want to stay in that comfort zone. And I'll tell you, I've never read a better story than the book Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
So good.
Talking about just getting uncomfortable every single day. And I've never heard anybody say it like him. So we've got to start practicing that a little bit more because we're all too comfortable. We like to sleep with our air at 68 degrees with the fan on us and a light sheet. We're just a bunch of, I'll leave it at that. So what was my upbringing like? I had great parents. You asked me who my heroes are, my mom and my dad. Probably a little bit more my mom than my dad. And I won't get into why, but hopefully my dad doesn't listen to this one. Hopefully only my mom listens to this podcast.
There you go.
But they were hardworking. Never saw either of them miss a day of work, especially my dad. My dad climbed towers for a living and then built towers. And so kind of the macho type thing that all kids wanted to go to work with their dad, like especially me. And then I always was wanted to make money. when 1992 happened, the Hurricane Andrews hit Miami super hard. My grandma gave us this wind-up radio so we can hear the news when the power went out. Well, we used the radio after the power went out, but after the hurricane settled down, we're all cleaning up. I went door to door to sell that radio because we no longer needed it anymore. So I've always liked sales, like making money. There's always a game to me. So I started a lawn service and then got into real estate, and here we are now.
That's awesome. And obviously another thing that I understand about your background is you served in the Army for 8 years. And I understand there was a bit of, an experience there where you learned even more about yourself, and perhaps you even learned more about, the priorities in your life, and even shifting back into real estate or even into real estate as a result of that. So could you tell me a little bit about that? And by the way, thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I got to correct you, man. It was 8.5 long, hard year. No, I did learn a lot. I learned what I could overcome, live with. You can adapt to a lot of things. However, there was a lot of great times too in the military. Some of the best friends you'll ever make in a life, just being out there. So that was a crazy time. Why did I join the military? I actually started in real estate first in 2007. I got my real estate license, and then I bought a house pretty much right after that. So I was the buyer's agent for that house. I was so broke in 2007, and I actually had a lawn service, but I was still broke. I didn't have the earnest money deposit of like $1,500. So I had to reach out to my great grandmother, and I said, "Hey, Grandma, can I borrow some money? I'm buying a house." And she actually owned real estate, or 1 5-acre parcel, and she had a four mobile home rental park in her side yard. So she understood it. So she was quick to say, "Yeah, no problem. I'll loan you the money." Plus, it helped that I was her favorite grandson. I was her only grandson. But she said, like, "Brent, if you don't pay it back, it's coming out of your inheritance." I said, "Don't worry, great grandma. I'm going to pay it back. I'm getting a real estate commission of like $3,900 to buy this house." So I pay it back. I get into the rental game, and then 2008, 2009 happens. I'm trying to buy more real estate, trying to sell real estate as a real estate agent, and things just didn't go the way I planned. Like, I was driving tenants around to rent houses, and I would have to get to the house 30 minutes early to turn the AC on. For some reason in South Florida, they didn't want to have the AC on. It's like super humid and damp in the house. It smells like dog urine. So I'm like bringing the Febreze. And if I was lucky, I would get one tenant secured in a lease, maybe pay me $300 for that week. So I was like, I got to do something different. This sucks. So my grandpa said, like, "Hey, Air Force would be, I wish I would have joined the Air Force." And I really looked up to him. So he's the one that actually introduced me to Jim Rohn. And that changed my life. But I really looked up to him. So I thought he knew, that's the best decision. I went to the Air Force recruiting station. Well, they said, "We don't like guys like you. We're not taking anybody right now like you." I added, "We're not taking anybody." Basically, they didn't want me because I had a little bit of a spiff when I was 18 years old. So I had something on my record, basically got jumped and had some battery charges on my record for defending myself. So they said, "Hey, go next door to the Army. They'll take anybody." So I did. I'm very coachable. So I did. I was in the military like 8 months later. And then right after that, after basic training, I went to Germany, then Afghanistan, did 2 combat deployments, and was always gone, always away, always gone. So, things had to change for me, because it actually cost me my first marriage on my second deployment. And the Army actually pulled me out of Afghanistan the second time to send me to college to become an Army officer, which was really cool. They only selected like 100 soldiers a year, active duty soldiers. They were still going to pay me to go to college for almost 2 years. So I had to jump through all those hoops and met the woman of my dreams now, started making a family. And when that first baby came, I was like, this is it. I'm out of the military. 8.5 years. I'm 8.5 years. I may have slept in my bed for 4 years of that.
Wow.
My home bed. I can't keep doing that. I got to be around for this child. I definitely don't want another wife taking off on me. Right. Which was a great lesson. It was a good thing it happened. But so that's when I got back into the real estate game. 2013, I hit the ground running, and I really just started pushing it. And I was struggling with that because I couldn't meet sellers really as an Army officer. I was very busy, like from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. I was at work. So I started mailing land, and I didn't have to meet landowners. They were less emotional about the property. And I did like 2 transactions in 3 weeks, netted me a bunch of money. And that's what changed my life. That's why I'm here on these podcasts talking about land, because I had to get out of that job because it was ruining my life. So I thought.
Yeah.
So here I am today and have passive income. I work a couple days a week, have a team that, well, I lie. I actually work every day because I love work. But
that's what happens, right?
Yeah. I have a team they're just amazing. If it wasn't for these guys, I wouldn't have the business I have today.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it just, I mean, your story illustrates how much of a sacrifice it truly is to serve our country. So big shout out to everybody that's listening that has served our country, or, is patriotic enough to support those who do serve our country. So, we just thank all of you. And of course, Brent, obviously your story, I mean, there were sacrifices in your background that have served you to become who you are today, and the way that you're serving people, whether it's through Land Sharks or just in your business, whether it's building your team and so forth, I think is awesome. And it's amazing now to see how you're expanding through this and continuing to evolve into that next version of yourself. And so obviously you talked about how you got started in real estate. And I think many of the listeners can relate in some way in the beginning of their real estate journey to say, man, I'm like totally slogging it. I'm trying to get a $300 rent, and I'm spraying Febreze and I'm fixing ACs. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is awful. Robert Kiyosaki never told me about this kind of stuff.
No, they don't talk about that.
And so it's important for us to really talk about that. It's not always glamour. It's not always just pure passive income and, the 4-hour work week and all these things. I mean, it can be a huge challenge, an uphill battle, which is why it's so important to, focus on your mindset and focus on how you're growing as an individual, which is why we're about what we're about on this podcast. Before we dive into that stuff, let's talk about land investing, because obviously you've chosen a niche that is, not really kind of the norm in terms of real estate investing. And obviously you've done that for many reasons. So let's talk about land investing. Tell me a little bit about your strategy and what does this look like from a high level? And then we'll dig into the weeds there.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned the hard times, because I love Tony Robbins. Like I listen to a lot of his stuff, like, Jim Rohn led me to Tony Robbins. But when I resonate the most with Tony Robbins, because I can't compare myself to a billionaire like that guy. Like he owns like 58 different companies. Right. But when I can compare myself to that huge man that he is, I can compare myself when he's talking about his struggles. Yes. Like when he was broke, when he couldn't afford the buffet, when he gave that money to the child to buy his mom's lunch that day. I can relate to that. I love the struggles, and it gives me goosebumps a little bit, because we all go through them and we forget about them and we don't talk about them. And it's embarrassing that my wife moved in with another man while I was deployed in Afghanistan. But I think that vulnerability resonates with more people than me saying how awesome I am, which I'm normal. I got to brush my teeth a couple times a day, so
it shows too, by the way. Your teeth are beautiful.
It's this white light, actually.
There you go.
Really. And that's probably where all your hair went, like all the struggles that you had in real estate. But how does my land process work? This has been built on tears and blood and sweat and a lot of support from my wife. Honestly, you show me a strong man, I'll show you 2 things. He's either got a team or a wonderful wife backing him, or vice versa. A strong, powerful woman that's a business leader, she's probably got a husband that's backing her as well. And not that I'm not saying that single people can't do this. Sure. I'm married. I've been married a long time, so I relate to that. But how does my system work? It started by me. I was out wholesaling houses, and I told you I started in rentals. I had like 6 or 7 rentals by 2015. But here's the thing. I was so broke with 7 rentals. Like my Amex was maxed out. My Home Depot card was maxed out. And I'm just like, there's gotta be a better way. And plus I accidentally chose a private college. So the Army was paying me, but I'm taking out debt, 33 grand a year. So I'm like, there's gotta be a better way. This is stupid. This is like, I see it now that I've been in it long enough. So I was like, I've got to, make some fast cash here. So I started wholesaling houses. Came across a guy named Tom Kroll, a wonderful organization called Wholesaling Inc., which I'm now their land coach for Wholesaling Inc. It's like one of the major accomplishments of my life, other than having 3 amazing children and a beautiful wife. But so I kind of built it out of necessity. I was running out the gate at noon when I had my lunch break, when I wasn't training or away or deployed, to go meet sellers of houses. Well, if I didn't get the contract right there, like it wasn't happening. Like I had like 5 minutes to build rapport, look at the house, get the thing under contract, and get back before anybody realized I was gone. And I did it a couple of times. If I would do it like 4 days a week, I would get about 1 contract a month. Built a team. I hired a amazing partner to help me with this. Jen, she is running the company now. And I heard this guy on a podcast talking about land. And I'm like, this is crazy. He's buying this stuff at massive discounts, like 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar, and flipping it and selling it and literally tripling his money overnight. So I was like, I'm not mailing the land. And I had the tax delinquent list I was mailing at that time. I was working on that list for houses. And I was like, well, I can just mail the land too. So I mailed out 687 postcards. It said just, hey, I'd like to buy the land on this street, or if it most of the time didn't even have an address. If you're interested in a fair cash offer, call me. My phone blew up. It was 687 letters. I got 85 phone calls. Out of those 85 phone calls, I only had time to return about 20 of them because, like I said, I had a crazy job, had a wife that wanted to see me, plus I wanted to spend time with my newborn baby. So out of those 20 phone calls, did 2 deals, and it took me about a span of about 3.5 weeks on both those deals to get paid. Each one of them netted me $4,500 net profit. I was like, can I replicate this and systematize it? And the second one of those deals, the second one I did, gave me a passive income of $400 a month. And I was like, wait a minute, I only need about $6,000 a month to get out of the military. So what is that, like 15 of these? I could do 15 of these in the next 15 months. So I did. I literally started seller financing all of them. I shouldn't say all of them. I did about 9 out of 10 because I had to flip one or wholesale the contract or assign the contract to make the cash to buy the next parcel of land. That way I could seller finance it. But if I bought it for, $5,000, I would sell it for $15,000 and I would get a monthly payment. So that was what allowed me in literally 8 or 9 months to make almost $7,000 a month to replace my income and put in my packet to get the heck out of the military.
I love it. And there's a lot of practicality behind, looking at, well, what is the income that you want to replace, right? And obviously reverse engineering that and saying, well, how many of these do I need to do to get there, right? Because we can overcomplicate this stuff all we want. But at the end of the day, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And it's also the calling card in terms of taking massive action. So it gave you the clarity and the energy towards getting those 15 deals. And I love the creativity now that you can then apply to this to say, look, I can do seller financing, I can wholesale deals, I can buy the deals. I'm sure you subdivide and, you look at in terms of, additional value that you can add to parcels. But tell me a little bit, what are the do's and don'ts that you've learned about land investing over the years? I'm sure you've had your share of wounds, and we were talking about some failures and things like that. But will you talk to me a little bit about the do's and the don'ts of land investing?
Yeah. Let's talk about the do first. You want to do your due diligence, AKA research, research the land. Is it buildable? Like Colorado, you have to have an acre of land to put in the septic system if there's not sewer already running to it. Are you able to put in a well, or do you have to connect into the city water? Is it on a road? Is it accessible? Or do you have to trespass against others across other land to get to your land? That second deal I did, we actually had to go across state land to get to that deal. And I disclosed it to my buyer, but that's why he got such a discount. And that's why I was able to get a discount, because there was something inefficient about that land. A realtor wasn't going to touch it. Now, once we had access, the place is probably worth $150,000, $250,000 now for a couple acres. Well, I paid $500 for it and sold it for $5,000, overnight. So, that's the thing. It was a little bit, weird. So the do's is do your research and understand what you're getting into, and just absolutely make sure that you're getting it at a massive discount, because here's the thing, that creates such a buffer. It creates such a buffer where it kind of allows you a lot of margin for error. Here's another thing. When you offer seller financing, it gives you even more of a buffer, because most people aren't walking around with $5,000, but they are walking around with $2,000 or $1,000 where they can put that money down. And I told you I paid $500 for that land. Well, guess what my down payment was? $500. I got my risk out of the deal. And the next month I got $400 that month cash. The guy would literally give me cash like a couple times a month. So that's really it. Now, the don'ts, I would say, don't get too cocky, because I started just buying stuff sight unseen. I'm like, okay, yep, county says it's worth $33,000. I'm paying $2,300. No brainer, right? Well, I didn't run title search. I didn't realize it was a treasurer's deed where the person bought it because they foreclosed, because they paid the taxes for many years. And then it's finally deed eligible and they foreclosed on it, took the deed, and they literally sold it to me. Well, there's a cloud on the title for 9 years. You've got to go through something called quiet title. And now I'm finding that it's only like $1,500 to do that, maybe $3,000. I could have went through quiet title and sold the thing for $30,000. But I didn't know what I didn't know type thing. I paid coaches. I hired a coach and I hired another coach, and I just kept like hiring anybody that knew anything about land. I would hire them because I was like, I want to be where you're at type thing. So I want to stand on the shoulders of giants and model, kind of like Tony Robbins says. And one more do is, go check out the land, send someone by there, take photos, put a sign out for sale while you're at it before you even buy it. Put a sign out and see if you can get someone that's interested in it. Because I have the question all the time, what if I get stuck with the land? And I say, what if you had a buyer before you even bought the land?
I love it, man. So it's obviously do your homework, go into the deal, eyes wide open. And I think that applies to real estate, any piece of real estate in general. It's do your homework, right? Trust, but verify. Due diligence is one of the most important systems or processes that any of us can employ in our business and continue to refine and get better. But I think what you said in terms of don't get too cocky, right? You think that you know everything, especially when you create more and more success and you start to think that you become invincible, right? In many ways. So the question is, all right, well, what is the next landmine, for lack of a better description and part of this conversation? So how can you step over that and mitigate that risk, right? So in terms of not getting too cocky, you mentioned hiring coaches, surrounding yourself with people, whether it's consultants or otherwise, to learn more, modeling success. But what are some other components of not getting too cocky that you would point to?
I'll tell you what, and most people, a lot of listeners, you got some pretty intelligent listeners, already sophisticated real estate people, but people just getting started are probably going to put up their defenses when I say this. They're going to push back and think they're going to have a lot of reasons. Well, I can't afford that, or I don't know who to hire. It is hire someone to do that due diligence for you every single time. They have a checklist that they've got to check, because that's like, I am a higher level. I'm a visionary. I see it and I do it a couple of times. I don't want to do it anymore. So I now have that person that does my due diligence. Like I have a due diligence checklist. I give it out for free, and I would be more than happy to share it. And it's nothing rocket science, but she checks every one of these 14 items. I think it's now 15 items every single time we buy a piece of land, even if we're buying it through a title company, because sometimes title companies don't catch liens that don't exist. Like if the water company has a water tap on the land and you have to pay $20 a month, and that fee's been adding up for 10 years, but they never place a lien on it, someone's going to have to pay that lien one day. So you got to call the water company, even if there's no water on the land type thing. That catches a lot of people. So that was probably my superpower, is I know that I'm not the, I shouldn't say, I always want to hire people or find people that are smarter than me. But I would say more also that will just stick to things and be responsible for things. Like me, I want to do everything. And sometimes it turns into nothing.
Yeah, no, that's so true. We have to surround ourselves with other people who can support us, not only in their own unique abilities, but in terms of what are they best at, whether they're highly detail oriented or they are more of a visionary like yourself. It's like we have to have some self-awareness to know who is it that we need to surround ourselves with. And it's so interesting as you were describing some of these challenges that you could, potentially get yourself into if you don't do the proper homework. I was thinking about one of the first deals I ever bought, and it was not a raw land deal, but it comes down to parceling the property. I wasn't aware that the property was actually in multiple parcels. I thought it was in one. And so I actually had back taxes on one of the parcels that accumulated over a few years that then became an issue, right? They became a problem when I went to sell the property years later. And so I think it comes down to, detailed due diligence, detailed homework, and asking the questions and maybe even saying, look, you know what, there might be some challenges here that we need to get ahead of. So having those checklists, I think, are really important. But have you run into any issues like that or any other issues that have really kind of opened your eyes to perhaps even expanding your due diligence checklist or so forth?
Yeah. One, for instance, I bought one of the last remaining lots in it was a neighborhood that was all manufactured homes, actual true manufactured home, not modulars, not trailers, but manufactured. And I'm like, why in the world is this thing still available? And what's really cool, and I'll actually wait till before I say that. I was like, why is this thing still available? And found out the lady's husband died. He was a builder. He literally built these things, and we had to open up the corporation to get this parcel of land. So all said and done, I had about $350 into this deal, and this is in Fountain, Colorado. If anybody wants to fact check me on Mojave. So basically, we get it all taken care of. And the lady's super happy. I sent her funds. I kept the deed. I never, ever put it in my name because I had a buyer that was going to pay me $16,000 for it, like the next day, the second I got that deed, because I found my buyer beforehand. I didn't want to get stuck with this thing. It was like my fifth land deal. So I'm about to buy one for 300 something bucks and make 16 grand. Life-changing money when you're only making like $4,000 a month in the military. So come to find out, thank God I didn't record that deed in my name because there's $157,000 IRS tax lien on this land.
Wow.
So if I would have taken it, apparently I would have inherited that. So I didn't. I was just like, put it in my filing cabinet. This poor lady's calling me for like the next several months. Hey, I'm still getting bills, tax bills. Get that land out of my name. Like I wouldn't return a call because I didn't know what to do. I froze in fear. I kept buying other little different parcels of land, kept going about my merry way. I just looked at that other one as like, hey, that was just an investment. The money's gone. Well, one of those coaches I talked about, he said, hey, try it again. Sometimes those things fall off. Well, I did. And then I hired another title company too, because you find a bad title company, they can almost put you out of business before you even get in business. Because I had like several of my deals go bad because my title company couldn't figure out how to fix the title issues. They ended up firing that agent. And I do now use them again, that title company. But anyhow, so I did. So I found another buyer, this time for $35,000. So that 1 year got me an additional doubled my money. And this time they were going to put $5,000 down and pay me $500 and something dollars a month, $584 a month for the next 7 years. I'm still getting paid today on that land deal. It's almost paid off though. It's going to be sad when that day happens. So they're going to buy it for $5,000. The title company is going to take care of everything. So basically we did it. We got the deal closed, got rid of the IRS tax lien. Got my $5,000 down the next day. I'm now actually holding a contract for deeds. I still own the land in my name. The deed's in my name, and got the deal done. But that was probably the biggest, scariest one for me, that $157,000 IRS tax lien, because that would have, I thought at the time that would have just wiped me out.
Yeah.
But, now I look at it, it's like, well, that would have been cost of doing business. But,
so how did you get rid of the lien? Did you negotiate as a part or
No.
with the title company, or how'd you get rid of the
title company made a few calls and it was gone.
Wow.
It was just gone. And they insured it. They put title insurance on it. Cause that's why I couldn't sell it to the first guy because he was going to develop it, but they would not give a title policy on it due to that lien. So, and I was
so you had it under option at the time. Is that correct?
No, I bought it. we reestablished the corporation that owned it. We had because it was dissolved. So we reestablished it. And then that lady was now the seller, the woman, the wife of the husband that died, became the new like managing member of the LLC, transferred it to me. And then now I owned it. She gave me a quit claim deed. So whenever basically the title company took that quit claim deed and title insured it for me. That way there was no issues with the transfer and got it in my name. That was clean and got rid of all the liens. And I mean, I think we owed the city like, I think $3,500 too for mowing for like the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'm just like,
so interesting.
That's such a racket.
Yeah. Cause you think about like these issues and you always want to get issues like this taken care of before acquiring a piece of property. And it's so interesting that you were able to sort it out even after taking title to the property. And so I think it just illustrates hiring great people around you, right? Surrounding yourself with great attorneys, great title companies, great lenders if you're in that business, and
coaches.
Coaches. Exactly. So I want to dive into some of your other strategies and philosophies, but before we go there, let's talk a little bit about systems in your business. So you've talked about identifying pieces of property, finding opportunities, whether it's wholesaling, whether it's using seller financing or what have you. Tell me a little bit about your strategies, because I know you use mailers and so forth. You use lists and systems. Talk to me a little bit about the flow of your business and how you find deals, how you find the appropriate buyers to exit to and so forth. And what does that all look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And as promised, I wanted to tell you what was cool about that. The last thing I want to tell you about that one deal, I actually was able to get the property next door under contract like last year. Literally the adjacent parcel, it had a manufactured home on it. And we ended up assigning that contract to a cash buyer. And I made a $35,000 net assignment fee on that one. So I ended up those two lots just doing almost roughly $70,000 worth of net profit on both of them. So that it's really crazy. Like you do one deal and it leads to another. Sure. So as far as my system, my strategies, you want to just kind of run through it like A to Z type thing?
That'd be great.
All right. So in the beginning, I really had a tight budget. I didn't have much money. So I was like, where's the lowest hanging fruit? And that was the people that were behind on taxes. I call that the tax delinquent list. Some counties call it the tax lien list. When you call the county, most of the time they'll say, well, that list doesn't come out till September or October. You got to wait. Don't wait. Get last year's list, because if they're behind on taxes, that shows there might be some type of motivation to get rid of that land, that house, that mobile home, whatever it is. I'm finding that counties are starting to charge for these lists. 5-6 years ago, they were free when I was using them, but it's a way to go after the low hanging fruit, especially the people that are out of state and behind on the taxes. They're telling me right there, they don't want the land or the house, whatever it is. So that's step one, if you're strapped for cash. Now, if you got a little bit more of a budget, you can just go to someone like priced.com, prycd.com. You can pull a list, whether it's land or houses, and they tell you what the land's worth. And they'll even give you like an offer sheet, like you want to offer 5 cents on the dollar, 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar. And I can share an affiliate link to get your first 7 days free and 400 records for free if you'd like.
Sure.
It's priced.com/the land sharks. That'll get you 7-day free trial. Plus your first 400 records are free. You just got to claim them. You can literally be mailing houses or land tonight.
Hey guys, just a quick word from our sponsor and we'll be right back to the show. This episode of Elevate is brought to you by CF Capital, and you know how much I love real estate and how it can be a vehicle towards creating any outcome that you want in your life, which is really why we created CF Capital. It's a real estate investment firm that focuses on acquiring and operating multifamily assets that provide stable cash flow, capital appreciation, and a margin of safety for our investors, for our partners, and for the people that we serve. Our team leverages its expertise in acquisitions and management to provide investors like you with superior risk-adjusted returns while placing a premium on preserving capital. Our mission is to provide property investment and asset management solutions to help investors maximize their returns by investing in high-value multifamily communities. Our philosophy is that we can elevate communities together through this process. And I want to invite you to go check out cfcapllc.com because we have a free ebook that's called The Bottom Line, the 10 ways to increase cash flow in an apartment complex. And I want to tell you that this is a value packed ebook. So I want to invite you to go check that out right now at cfcapllc.com. I think you're going to get a ton of value just from reading this, whether you apply it to your own business or whether you educate yourself further on what it would look like if you invested with CF Capital. So go check that out at cfcapllc.com. Again, that's cfcapllc.com, and enjoy the rest of the show.
That's awesome. I love it. And it just comes down to resourcefulness, right? It's asking for the list. And if they tell you no, well, wait a minute, there's still another option here. Well, how about last year's list? I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I had to talk to 5 different people before I met the right person. And guess what? She sent me the wrong list the first time. That was the most like, that was rough in the beginning. And I have students all the time. They're like, well, they told me that list doesn't come out till then. I'm like, I told you in the module, they're going to tell you that. And here's what you say. But people get beat up, and it's just about going back. Rocky kept standing up and getting punched in the face again. That's why, we're talking to Elevate Nation right here. Mindset. You just got to have that mindset of knowing I'm going to get punched in the face today, but tomorrow I'm going to get out of bed and do it again. And the punches eventually get softer. Yeah. And eventually it's like you hire a team and then they get punched in the face.
Yeah. Well, they start to recognize that you're not going to give up. So they're going to stop punching you in the face. And if they do, maybe you've reached a point where they're punching you in your thighs, and your thighs are not nearly as sensitive as your face. And so as you continue to grow, you get stronger. That's like one thing I remember when I originally read Think and Grow Rich several years ago, when I read, those words from Napoleon Hill, that one of the principles was persistence. I was like, man, you know what? I got that. I at least have persistence, and I can be resilient. I can keep getting up, and I can never give up. And as I continue to feel discouraged, I can keep going. And sometimes that's all you have, but sometimes that's the most valuable thing. But then you flex that muscle. So let's talk a little bit about mindset and why is mindset, and how does mindset impact your success?
Probably my favorite subject to talk about. But let me tell you before, I want to disclaim this. Like, I don't always have the best mindset. Sometimes I'm a little aggravated. Sometimes I feel like my Cheerios had the cat pooped in my Cheerios, but I get over that. And eventually I get back to the happy, good, positive mindset I have. But it's a struggle. And I used to think, oh my God, these leaders out here on stage, the Jim Rohns of the world, like, they're just happy. This is too easy for them. They're always like that. Well, I don't think that's the case. I think it's one of those things, like Jim Rohn says, like, motivation is like taking a shower. You got to do it a couple of times a day, or depending on where you live in the world, type thing. Right. So we got to reset our mind. I'll tell you what, a setback we just had. I thought we were going to have a pool party this weekend. Well, the pool company, some reason or another, they quit on us, because of something that was going on. They thought we didn't want them anymore. And it's funny, the lady that sold us the house owns the pool company. And I'm like, what the heck? What? Why wouldn't we want you anymore? So we were told we can't swim this weekend. And the kids were just like looking forward to it. And for about 30 seconds, I was like, darn it, man. And now I'm over it. We're going to find other things to do, type thing. And you just got to get over the obstacles. That was my obstacle. We can't swim this weekend because they just put chemicals in there. It's the stuff that'll burn our skin off, acid or whatever. So we could jump in we could probably swim, but we'd have burnt skin, type thing. So you just got to get over those constant obstacles that are going to come your way. And persistence, you mentioned it. I will tell you what, I have learned so many lessons from children. My daughter can pretty much get anything she wants in life. And not because she's my daughter, and not because all the women listening to this are probably thinking, well, yeah, because you're a pushover, your dad. No, it's because she does not stop asking until she gets what she wants, and it pisses me off. But who won? The 3-year-old or me? Definitely the 3-year-old. She kicked my butt. She took my soul, David Goggins would say, because she just kept asking for the popsicle until she finally got it. She asked in so many different ways: a sweet way, a mean way, a mad way, a screaming way that hurts my ears. And that usually is the one that does it.
Yeah. It's so cool because the basis of your mindset comes down to just that resiliency, that persistency, that continuing to push forward. And of course, behind you, there's a rhinoceros, right? If anybody's watching on YouTube, you see the rhinoceros behind Brent. And then, of course, before the podcast, we were talking about a book that both of us love, and it's called Rhinoceros Success by Scott Alexander. If anybody's watching on YouTube, I just held that book up. We'll put a link in the show notes as to where you can find that. But it's a very, very simple book, and it's a very impactful book that both of us have read. And it was actually one of the first books that it was actually my first broker in real estate gave me this book. And I remember reading it and I'm like, man, this is so simple and kind of silly, but it has stuck with me ever since. And I have a picture of a rhinoceros in my office. And I know that you're very fond of this as well. So talk to me about how that book and just that philosophy, there you go. There it is right there, the rhinoceros statue. So how does the rhinoceros success philosophy impact your thinking and how you continue to push forward?
Scott Alexander, the author of Rhinoceros Success, said it best. You just got to charge every single day. You got to get out of bed as soon as your feet hit the ground. You got to start charging. They've got 3-inch thick skin. So the torpedoes are going to hit you and they're going to bounce off. Some might stick in, but you got to pull those out too. And if you think about it, and this is the Rhino tribe, the wholesaling Inc. is the Rhino tribe. So that's why it's like my behind me here, but I mean, I have the course called the Land Sharks. I couldn't think of anything, the Land Rhino, but I mean, it's just like they've got that horn that will stab and knock things out of the way. You've always just got to be charging. I feel like any business that you have in life, I mean, if you want to get something done, just charge right through it. Now be smart about it. You can analyze things and figure out better ways around the wall, or you can just charge right through it.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And the other thing that really stuck out to me on that one is sometimes the rhino lays in the mud too. Sometimes the rhino needs to recharge and just chill out. And we all need that too, right? So it's not all about just charging through the wall or just being persistent and resilient and tough. But of course, many of those things are relevant. Sometimes we need to take a back seat and chill out in the mud. So man, there's so much good stuff there. There's so much good stuff in this conversation. I know we could have gone in so many other directions as well, but I want to transition into our rapid fire section. It's called the Rare Air Questionnaire. It's all about being uncommon. It's all about charging through the wall. It's all about having 2-inch or 3-inch thick skin so that you can continue to be persistent. But I have a few questions for you before we wrap for the day, Brent. If you had to point to 2 or 3 of the most impactful books that you've read over the past few years, what would those be and why?
I would say definitely number 1, Rhinoceros Success. And I already talked about that. Number 2, The Go Giver, not to be confused with The Go Getter. The Go Giver is just such an amazing book. My entire business is built on that philosophy. Connect people with others, collaborate. It's just such great knowledge. And number 3, The Wealthy Gardener. That's the one I literally gave that book to my chiropractor the other day. It's just practical knowledge. I wish someone would have chained me to my desk when I was 18 years old and made me read the Wealthy Gardener. Just such amazing advice, practical advice in a story format. I love those books that are really thin and easy to read and big letters. I'd say The Wealthy Gardener was a little bit longer than what I preferred, but I like stories too.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We'll put links in the show notes to those books. And I just love how that's impacted your philosophy in terms of how you serve other people, how you give, and how that's created this abundant mentality that you have shared with us today. So I think there's so much value in that. I just love asking about books because there's always something new to learn. And we all learn something different from a book, right? There's always a new distinction perhaps that you got that maybe I didn't. And so I think it's important for us to discuss books as well, not only just read them, study them, and share them with other people. And aside from our discussion today, what's the biggest way that you elevate your life on a daily basis, Brent?
Man, I'm now wishing I would have mentioned the Bible too. Can I add for it? No.
There you go. Yeah.
Elevate my life. I go through ups and downs. There's some weeks where I'm like really good on like personal development, physical fitness. I would say hiring coaches. If there's anything I want to do, like I've got a business coach I'm going to talk to right after this call. I'm big on coaches, and that elevates my life. If I can compress time frames so that coach took 10 years to teach what he's teaching me, and it takes me, and I can do a 6-month course with his coach or 12 months, I can literally almost compress his 10 years or her 10 years to my 1 year. Marriage counselor. That's no bigger investment than in your marriage than a marriage counselor. You don't have to be in the dumps or the slumps to go through marriage counseling. You could start like now and always be improving in life. I no longer have my personal trainer because I just moved, but a guy that I was also teaching how to, invest in land was training me. And I'm talking about some like gains quick. So I just like to model success. And that's one way I would say hire a coach and maybe trade with a coach. Maybe you can't afford a coach right now. Figure out a way to afford that coach.
Yeah. Get resourceful, right? Because how interested or how committed are you to that outcome? Or are you just interested? Because if you're just interested, then, I can't afford it. I can't do that. Or I don't have any time for that, or whatever the excuse is. So I just think that that's a great realization. I almost think of tribe of mentors. It's like you're creating a tribe of mentors around you to help you compress those timeframes. And I love elevating in that capacity. And I think that's such a great distinction. What's the biggest way that you elevate others around you, Brent?
Give them confidence and permission. That's Tom Kroll gave me that. He was the founder of Wholesaling Inc. He said, when you're coaching someone, you got to give them permission and confidence. And that's just been one of like the biggest like mindset paradigm shifts I ever could have ever heard. And I get people calling me every single day that I personally coach, and all I've got to do is give them permission and confidence.
That is awesome. That is a phenomenal distinction. And I know that every single one of us has the opportunity to give someone else confidence, to give someone else permission to go bigger, to be more, and to be the highest version of themselves, because that's what we're all really, we've all been born to do that. We've all been born to become this highest version of ourselves. And it comes down to really everything we talked about today. So Brent, what an awesome conversation. Is there any parting thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with Elevate Nation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, I know that, and just from what you said, just made me think of this. I know I mentioned Tony Robbins several times on here, but I went to his UPW out in LA a couple of years ago. I brought one of my team members, brought my pregnant wife. And I never would have ever thought about walking on fire, actual coals, but he did it. That gave me the confidence and the permission, like this old guy, and I'm calling Tony Robbins old. Yes. This old guy's doing it. I can do it. And I walked right across that thing. I got the confidence and the permission to do it.
That is amazing.
Didn't hurt at all.
By the way, I was there too. And I did the exact same thing. We were at the same UPW. So big shout out to you. Big shout out to everybody else who joined us in that experience. And that is a life-changing experience, right? And we could talk about that for much longer, but such a great way to end the conversation, man. I just want to encourage Elevate Nation to check out thelandsharks.com. Of course, we'll put a link in the show notes as to where you can find Brent on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. But is there anywhere else where the listeners can find you, Brent?
Yeah, thanks for asking. And if you want to go to thelandsharks.com, set up a call, see if we can help you in your real estate goals. Be honored to coach you. I just actually launched a YouTube channel like 2 months ago. I don't think anybody else out there is actually giving the advice I'm giving how to invest in land on YouTube. So free channel. I'm busting out content 5 days a week on there, and then or Instagram, Brent L. Bowers. Super easy to find me.
There we go. Brent L. Bowers on Instagram, and of course, thelandsharks.com as well. Again, just check the link in the show notes for every place that you can find Brent. And of course, you want to check him out on YouTube. We'll definitely check that out. I will be doing that myself. So Brent, thank you so much for bringing so much value today. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, Tyler. Such a fun time.
Thank you for listening to Elevate. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to elevate your results by taking immediate action on what you learned. For more, visit elevatepod.com.